Hey everyone, it's your boy, Haven. Today we'll be exploring the houses of the Vale. This might be a shorter video actually, there aren't many canon houses that we know about in the Vale, but the non-canon ones have cool sigils so we can still check them out. As always, like and subscribe for more content, whether it's CK3 stuff like this or animated lore, and check out the Patreon if you're interested. Now let's begin. The Lord Paramountcy of the Vale is of course ruled by House Arryn, a blue falcon on a white moon on blue, as high as honour. House Arryn used to live at the gates of the moon, but ended up building the Eyrie on top of this giant mountain, as a sort of pleasure palace, although they have to abandon it every winter, obviously. House Arryn was founded by this guy, the Falcon Knight, Artis Arryn. During the Andal invasion, the Andals in the Vale rallied behind the Falcon Knight, who was a native Vale man. Soon all of the houses bent their knee, and he became King Artis Arryn of Mountain and the Vale. This guy, Roland Arryn, constructed the Eyrie after being inspired by his wife, Tiora Hunter. He ended up being killed by a clansman. King Osgood was known as the Old Falcon, and he went to war with Winterfell for some reason. Queen Shara Arryn was the beautiful regent of her son, Ronal Arryn, known as the King Who Flew. So Shara surrendered the Vale to Queen Visenya after she took the child Ronal on Vhagar's back and rode him around the Eyrie. Ronal became the first Lord Paramount. He was known as the Boy Who Flew, which is quite ironic, because his brother Jonos rose up against him and threw him out the moon door. Of course, Jonos himself declared himself King of the Vale, but he was also thrown out the moon door by his garrison after Maegor the Cruel came knocking. The line continued through their cousin Hubert. So further down, this guy Roderick married Daela Targaryen, the teenage daughter of Jaehaerys, who for some bizarre reason decided to marry his teenage daughter to this old man, and of course she died in childbirth, who would have guessed. Her daughter was Aemma Arryn, who went on to marry Visiti himself, King Viserys I, and they had one living child together, Rhaenyra Targaryen, who of course led the Black faction during the Dance of the Dragons. So this next bit will contain some House of the Dragon spoilers, so skip to the next chapter if you don't want any of that. During the Dance of the Dragons, the Lady of the Vale was indeed Rhaenyra's cousin, Lady Jane Arryn. Lady Jane was supposedly the lover of Jessamine Redfort, which is why they've given her the gay trait. The Big Gay. Her father and older brothers were killed by stone crows, and so she took over, although her cousin, Arnold Arryn, tried to depose her 2 separate times. So after Aegon II killed Rhaenyra and took King's Landing, she raised an army in the Vale to march down south with the Northern Army. When Aegon II himself was killed, Jane served as one of Aegon III's first regents. She later died of a cold. So as I said, her cousin Arnold had tried to take the Vale from her. The second time he tried to depose her, he was thrown in the Sky Cells, where he went crazy. So he's got the lunatic trait here, and then he became known as the Mad Heir. Her dying wish was that the Vale would not pass to him, but to a more distant cousin, Joffrey. So yeah, Jane's death, however, caused a succession crisis, and Arnold's son Eldrick rose up against her, although he was executed by Corwyn Corbray. This guy, Donal Arryn, led the vanguard of the Targaryen host during the first Blackfire Rebellion at the Battle of the Redgrass Field, which you can learn more about in my Blackfire video, shameless plug. And his daughter Alice married Prince Rhaegal Targaryen, the third son of Daeron II, who died after choking on a pie. And he was also a bit crazy. So now we go all the way down here to Jon Arryn, who of course is the Lord of the Vale. He fought in the War of the Ninepenny Kings, where he befriended Rickard Stark and Steffon Baratheon, and as such he accepted their children, Ned Stark and Robert Baratheon, to be warded in the Eyrie. He married the young Lysa Tully and joined Robert's rebellion on Robert's side. When the rebellion was over, he was named Hand of the King, and he effectively ruled the realm while Robert was busy drinking and whoring and hunting. Eventually he was poisoned by his wife, who hated him, and was acting on the orders of Littlefinger, who wanted to trigger some chaos. Just, trusting, honourable, diligent. He was a good man. He had a few potential heirs. His younger brother was already dead, and he had a nephew, Elbert Arryn. However, Elbert was executed by the Mad King. He had a distant cousin called Dennis Arryn, who married Alyssa Waynwood, who was the daughter of Alice Waynwood, his sister. So Dennis was a distant cousin but also his brother-in-law. He was known as the Darling of the Vale, but unfortunately he was slain during the Battle of the Bells by John Connington. Who is the heir now, you ask? Well, that's the thing. Of course, John goes on to sire Sweet Robin, Robert Arryn, allegedly at least. But who is Robert's heir during the books? John had a sister called Alice Arryn. She married Ellis Waynwood and they had a bunch of kids. And their youngest daughter married a Harding and had a son, Harold Harding, who's known as Harry the Heir because he's the heir to the Vale. We'll talk about him in a bit. As well as ruling over the entire Vale, House Arryn rule over the Duchy of the Giant's Lance, which is the name of this mountain. They also hold the counties of the High Road, Moongates, the Bloody Gate, and the Eyrie itself. And one of John's courtiers is Maya Stone, the bastard daughter of Robert Baratheon. The county of Donnersdown is ruled by House Donnelly. We've got a green antler here. We too are ancestors. House Donnelly is semi-canon. They come from the Game of Thrones video game from 2011. There are a couple of characters called Godric and Uthor Donnelly, who we can see here. The county of Giant Scar is ruled by House Top. We've got a white goat on red. Rock and stone. House Top is non-canon. Get used to the phrase non-canon, I'll be throwing that out a lot. I think we'll go down this way and work our way up counterclockwise. So the Duchy of Nine Stars here is ruled by House Templeton. We've got a yellow cross with a bunch of black stars on it. House Templeton is a powerful knightly family. Although they're landed knights, they're considered as powerful as many lords in the Vale. There was a Knight of Nine Stars who was killed by Daemon Blackfire himself during the Battle of the Redgrass Field. The current Knight of Nine Stars is Sir Simond, or Simond Templeton. Simond is one of the Lords Declarant. So essentially after Lysa Arryn dies, and Littlefinger becomes the Lord Regent and Lord Protector of the Vale, 6 lords called the Lords Declarant join together to try and oust Littlefinger. Simond Templeton is one of them, although Littlefinger believes that he can befriend him. As well as ruling over this duchy, they also rule over the county of Nine Stars. The county of Newbury is ruled by House Upshall. The ancient boldness is ours. We've got a swan and a book. Meanwhile, the county of Stoutstone is ruled by House Stuart. We have a rat here. Now, both of these houses are non-canon. However, the county of Cyprus is ruled by House Dutton, which is canon. Apparently, House Dutton supported Sir Arnold Arryn during the succession crisis that arose after Jane Arryn's death. Next up, we got the Duchy of Wickenden, which does not have a duke, but the duchy can be granted to House Waxley. 6 candles on grey, light in darkness. House Waxley are indeed canon. Lord Waxley himself is one of the potential suitors of Lysa Arryn who wants to marry her, before she marries Littlefinger. Edmund Waxley, this guy, also attends the wedding of Lionel Corbray, who's an ally of Littlefinger, so that implies House Waxley are on Littlefinger's side. The county of Marbletoft is ruled by House Weatherwax. More wax shit going on here. We got 3 flaming candles here, on black, on gold. House Weatherwax is also canon. In the past, there was an Anya Weatherwax who attended the Maiden Days Ball. A bunch of ladies throughout the 7 Kingdoms tried to present themselves to Aegon III, so he could choose a new wife. She wasn't selected. Apparently she may be a reference to a character from Discworld called Granny Weatherwax. The county of Crabshaw is ruled by House Garnet. And here we have 2 red crabs. House Garnet are non-canon. Next up we got the Duchy of Strongstone, ruled by House Redfort. A red fort on white, which is also on red. As strong as stone. So the Redfort are an old First Man house. In the past we have Sir Adrian Redfort, who was on the Kingsguard for Rhaenyra. So we may see him in House of the Dragon at some point. And Jessamine Redfort was a dear companion of Jane Arryn, which is what fuels the rumours that Jane Arryn was a lesbian. And Jane Arryn even died in her arms. So yeah, they were roommates. The current lord is Lord Horton Redfort, this guy. Interestingly enough, his squire was Demeric Bolton for a bit, the son of Roose Bolton. He's one of the Lords Declarant, but he's an old man and Littlefinger thinks he's going to die soon, so isn't much of a threat. One of his children is Michael Redfort, the handsome young Michael. So Michael is Maya Stone's lover, and Maya Stone wants to marry him, but of course he's too high for her. He squires for Harold Harding, and after he's knighted, he's forced to marry Isilla Royce, one of Bronzion Royce's daughters. So in the county of Breckland, we have House Gorse, Till We Fall. In the county of Broome, we have House Waite. Okay. A cheeky owl here. In the county of Mulberry we have House Mullin, with a golden wheel and a bunch of stars. And in the county of Tangled Shore we have House Aldrin. What looks like, half of it is a web and the other half is a white spider on green. All of these are non-canon houses, but they do have really cool sigils. Next up we have the Duchy of Goldtown, named after the city of Goldtown, which is the only city in the Vale, and it is a wealthy, prosperous port city. Ruled over by House Grafton, where we have a flaming tower here. So the founder of this house was Sir Gerald Grafton. He was an Andal knight who supported King Osgood Shet against House Royce, and he ended up marrying the daughter of King Shet. And after this king died, potentially at Sir Gerald's hand, Gerald took his crown and established rule over Goldtown, which prospered under him, and he became a very wealthy, powerful man with a wealthy, powerful house. Now moving to the present, we have Lord Grafton, who remained loyal to the Mad King during Robert's Rebellion. As you can see here, he remained loyal to the Iron Throne and he defied House Arryn. And we know of someone called Mark Grafton who was slain at the walls of Goldtown by Bobby B himself. And we don't know if they're the same person, but the mod has made them the same person. Lord Mark. During the books, the Lord of Goldtown is not his son, but his grandson, Lord Gerald Grafton. And he appears to be friendly with Littlefinger. He has a son called Giles, who hasn't been born yet, because this guy's Lucas. But his son Giles is sent as a ward to the Eyrie. As well as ruling the Duchy of Goldtown, they rule the county of Goldtown. So yeah, we've got the city of Goldtown, but we've also got the Burning Tower, which is probably a reference to their sigil. The county of Etterbill is ruled by House Barnaby, and the county of Keir is ruled by House Kinnear. A bunch of prancing lambs here. Both of these houses are non-canon. We have a county called Osgoodswell, which is a reference presumably to Osgood Shet, the old king. And this is ruled by House Shet. There we go. Now there are two branches of House Shet. This is House Shet of Goldtown. And there he is. We meet one of them in the main books called Uther Shet. He has a crush on Miranda Royce and tries to awkwardly flirt with her, but to no avail. And finally, the county of the Port of Arryn is ruled by House Arryn, the Arryns of Goldtown, a distant cadet branch. The sigil's the same except for the moon in the back is golden. So yeah, this cadet branch prefer to marry Goldtown merchants, which has made them very, very wealthy. But because they don't marry into nobility that much, they're sort of considered uncouth. They're like the strange cadet branch that's looked down upon. In the past, we had Lord Isambard Arryn, also known as the Gilded Falcon. So during the succession crisis I mentioned before, after Jane Arryn died, he also threw his hat into the ring. He was like, well, I'm an Arryn, I'm rich. Yeah, I'll go for the lordship too. Of course this failed, he ended up being executed. Moving on to the Duchy of Runestone, ruled by House Royce. And they have an amazing sigil here, it's just a bunch of runes on bronze. We remember, very ominous words. So House Royce are pretty awesome, they're an old and powerful First Men house. There's a sort of ancestral bronze armour inscribed with ancient runes that apparently protect the wearers from any harm. They control several ports in their duchy, so they don't have to rely on Goldtown for their commerce, so they're quite wealthy. In the past, there used to be Bronze Kings. You can trace them back to King Yorick. The last Bronze King was King Robar II Royce, who fought against the Andals. He was slain in battle, and of course after this the Arryns took over the Vale and it became the Vale of Arryn. Looking at some historical Royces, we have Lady Rhea Royce, the bronze bitch of Runestone, who married Daemon Targaryen. She died in an accident, supposedly. She fell off a horse, hit her head on a rock, and... Don't you bark at me. Hit her head on a rock and then died. In the show they make it pretty obvious that Daemon is responsible. Why have they given him that moustache? The Lord of Runestone during the books is this giant of a man, Bronzeon Royce. So during the War of the Five Kings, he's pressuring Lysa Arryn to support Robb Stark, but she doesn't. And after Littlefinger takes over and Lysa dies, he leads the Lord's Declarant against him. He's like the leader of the anti-Baelish resistance, basically. He's got a bunch of kids. His eldest son is Andar Royce. Andar was defeated by Jaime Lannister during the Hands Tourney. His second son, Robar Royce, also defeated during the Hands Tourney, by Renly, actually. No, he's defeated by Loras during the tourney, but then he goes on to support Renly's claim to be king because Robar wants to make a name for himself. He's a second son, he's like, you know what, I want to do something different. So he joins Renly's Rainbow Guard and becomes Robar the Red. Unfortunately, after the assassination of Renly, Loras kills Robar the Red in a Red Rage. And his third son, Sir Waymar Royce, joins the Night's Watch. I like how he has the fashionable trait here. When he's in the Night's Watch, he wears sort of like, black silk and fancy clothes, ermine, that kind of thing. He's sent on a ranging beyond the wall, and in the prologue of the very first book, the very first Game of Thrones chapter we ever get, he's killed by the others, but not before saying, "Dance with me then." So we know of a Rhiella Royce, who goes on to marry Arwood Frey, who's the son of Hostine Frey, and Isilla Royce, as I mentioned before, is married to Michael Redfort. And there's also a Pera Royce, who's the first ever wife of Walder Frey, and here they've made her a very distant cousin over here. She's the mother of Stevron Frey, Emmon Frey, Aenys Frey, and Perianne Frey. Every Frey explained is coming soon, I promise. Now, House Royce have a pretty recent Gadet branch. House Royce of the Gates of the Moon, a white moon on purple and with the gate in front symbolising the Gates of the Moon within the runic sigil. This guy is Sir Nestor Royce. He's Bronzion's cousin and he's the High Steward of the Vale. Many people believe that he should be Sweet Robin's Lord Regent instead of Lysa. And he's Littlefinger's ally, especially after Littlefinger gives him the Gates of the Moon to buy his support. And so yeah, he becomes the Knight of the Gates of the Moon and establishes his own cadet branch, I think. His son is Albar Royce, who's one of the many within court who offer themselves as a champion during Tyrion's trial by combat. And then there's Miranda Royce, who is a playful gossip, and she's friends with Maya Stone and goes on to befriend Sansa Stark disguised as Littlefinger's bastard daughter. She's a very fun character. As well as ruling the Duchy of Runestone, they rule over the County of Runestone. The County of Bronzeguard is ruled by House True, which is a blue dog on white, this isn't canon. And the County of Etchings is ruled by House Wit, which also isn't canon. You got a hammer and nail here. The County of Golview is ruled by House Shet, the Shets of Runestone. Here we have 3 golden wings on a black and white checkered field. So yeah, the Knight of Gold Tower himself, sworn to House Royce, is Sir Damon Shet, who, he must be this guy. The County of Witch Isle, the islands over here, are ruled by House Upcliff, a crushing blue wave on black. House Upcliff are canon, they have a sinister reputation. Their house goes all the way back to the Age of Heroes. Supposedly they were founded by Ursula Upcliff, who was a reputed sorceress who claimed to be the bride of the Merling King. Next up, let's explore the Duchy of Iron Oaks, ruled by House Waynwood, a broken black wagon wheel on green. Onwards. So House Waynwood are an old prideful house of horse-faced people, apparently. Historically, we have Wild Will Waynwood, who fought in the vanguard of Donal Arryn during the First Blackfire Rebellion at the Battle of the Redgrass Field, and he was personally slain by Daemon Blackfire himself. We also know of Ellis Waynwood, who married Alice Arryn and had a bunch of kids, and he's the grandfather of Harry the Heir, who again we'll talk about later. So the current Lady of Iron Oaks is Anya Waynwood herself, who is a widow during the main books. She is one of the 6 Lords Declarant, but Littlefinger is able to buy up Waynwood debt to bring her on his side, and in return she agrees to wed Harry the Heir to Elaine Stone, who, as I said, is Sansa Stark in disguise. It's all part of Littlefinger's plan. So we know she has 3 sons. We've got Morton, who's one of Lysa Arryn's suitors, and Morton has a son, an unnamed son who's knighted, and here they've called him Roland. Donal Waynwood, this guy, is the man who rescues Catelyn and her party from clansmen while they're trying to reach the Eyrie, with Tyrion in tow as a hostage. After the Blackfish resigns from his position, Donal Waynwood becomes the Knight of the Bloody Gate. There's also a Wallace Waynwood, who in the books is recently knighted, but he hasn't been born yet. Lady Anya is also described as having some unnamed daughters, so here we have Caroline, Alice, and Marcella. Now, Caroline Waynwood is actually a character in the books. It's not described how she's related to the main branch of Waynwood, but here they've made her a daughter. Caroline goes on to marry Jeremy Frey, and she becomes the mother of Sandor Frey and Cynthia Frey. Sandor goes on to squire for Donal Waynwood, and Cynthia goes on to be a ward of Lady Anya. As well as ruling the Duchy of Iron Oaks, the Waynwoods rule the County of Iron Oaks. The County of Hardvale is ruled by House Harding, a blue and white checkered sigil, balanced and ready. So House Harding are landed knights sworn to House Waynwood. In the past we had a Humphrey Harding, who is at the tourney of Ashford, which is where the first Dunk and Egg story takes place. His leg was broken by Arryn Brightflame, but despite this, he fought against him during the Trial of Seven to get his revenge, but he was wounded and then he later died of his wounds. Here we have Lord Ronald Harding, who's married to Anya Waynwood, the daughter of Alice Arryn and Ellis Waynwood, and his son is the good-looking Harold Harding, who's known as Harry the Heir because if Robert Arryn were to die, he would become the Lord Paramount of the Vale. He's known as the Young Falcon, a handsome, arrogant young man, and the ward of Anya Waynwood. Despite only being like 19 by the latest book, he's already got 2 women pregnant. Littlefinger wants him to marry Elaine Stone, aka Sansa Stark, as part of his plot. Harry will inevitably become Lord Paramount of the Vale, and then Sansa will be revealed as the Lady of the North, and there'll be an alliance. I think that's the plan. We also know of a Deanna Harding, who we don't know how she's connected to the main branch, but here she's Harry the Heir's aunt. And she's married to Walton Frey, the son of Sevron Frey and grandson of Walder Frey. And they have 3 kids together, including Steffon the Sweet and Fair Walder Frey, who's considered the most attractive Frey. So presumably they get that attractive gene from their mother. The Hardings are... I get the impression the Hardings are meant to be very attractive. The Duchy of Hazen is ruled by House Verlaine, some swords across some hay. The Duchy of Ryfeld is ruled by House Beale, a Golden Ben Sinister here, guard me. And the County of the Banners is ruled by House Ormond, honour is salvation. All 3 of these houses are non-canon. The Duchy of Old Anchor is ruled by House Melcolm. Here we've got an anchor, deception is strength. Interesting house words there. We basically know nothing about House Melcolm. They rule over the Duchy of Old Anchor as well as the County of Old Anchor. The Duchy of Rust Point is ruled by House Cullamore, got a winged creature here, by sword and bow. And the Duchy of Tetchmere is ruled by House Selden, a creature's claw and some teeth, I think. Both of those houses are non-canon. However, the County of Wycliffe is ruled by House Widman, which is semi-canon because it doesn't appear in the books, but it does appear on the Citadel website. Apparently this house was founded by a knight who bested 5 powerful knights during a tourney. So we have a bunch of broken lances and a bunch of sigils up here. We have the Redfort of the Redfort, a snake of House Lynderly, a broken wagon wheel of House Waynwood, a purple unicorn of House Brax, and a golden lion of House Lannister. So these must be the knights the founder, this guy, defeated. The Duchy of Eastweald is ruled by House Hunter. We got a bunch of white arrows and brown, by valour and bravery. So the Hunters are an ancient First Man house, who sided with King Robar Royce against the Andals during the invasion. Supposedly, King Robar Royce outshot Lord Hunter in an archery contest to gain his support. In the past we have Queen Teora Hunter, who was the queen consort of Roland Arryn, who I said earlier inspired him to build the Eyrie. The current Lord Hunter during the books is Lord Eon Hunter, this ancient guy, older than Jon Arryn. He's one of Lysa Arryn's suitors, and one of the many people who offer to champion her during Tyrion's trial by combat. This guy versus Bronn, that would have been something. He suddenly dies after he's murdered by one of his sons. So his eldest son is Gilwood Hunter, and his younger brothers accuse him of murdering their father. He's described as being red-faced and obsessed with wine, and so they've made him a drunkard. He's even described as having a bushy moustache. There's a nice little touch there. Yeah, he's one of the 6 Lords Declarant, although Littlefinger doesn't think he's a threat because he's certain that he will be murdered by his youngest brother Harlan. Next up is Eustace Hunter, again accuses his older brother of murdering Eon. And then there's Harlan Hunter, who actually himself murdered Eon. And Littlefinger believes Harlan will likely murder his older brother Gilwood. He's deceitful, ambitious, vengeful, callous. We also know of a Janice Hunter. We don't know her relation to the main branch, but they've made her Eon's daughter. She is the wife of Edwin Frey. Edwin is the great-grandson of Walder Frey, and actually, by the end of A Dance with Dragons, he is the heir to the twins. It's pretty much a known fact that Janice is having an affair with Black Walder, and her daughter with Edwin, Walder Frey, might actually be Black Walder's bastard daughter. As well as ruling over the Duchy of Eastweald, the Hunters rule over the County of Longbow Hills. The County of Bolin is ruled by House Chase, which isn't canon, but it's got a cool sigil. Brackenbrick Point is ruled by House Cruz, a bunch of anchors, also non-canon. The County of Lyme is ruled by House Bretherick, This is really nice. We got like a white sun above a mountain on blue. House Bretherick is also non-canon. The county of Rothermont is ruled by House Rothermont, which actually is canon. We have 5 black starfish on gold. So they were an Andal house during the Andal invasion, and in the past we know of a Lord Rothermont, who may have been the man who slew King Royce in battle. The county of Sedgemoor is ruled by House Crane. We've got a purple crane on white. Not to be confused with House Crane from the Reach. We know of a historical crane, Simond Crane, who was on the Kingsguard for Maegor the Cruel, and when Jaehaerys became king he was sent to the Night's Watch. There we go, a black brother. Last but not least, we have the county of the Stills, which is ruled by House Rancamon. Rancamon. A non-canon, believe it or not. I wish I knew the origin of this. Rancamon. And here we have some white wings in front of some blue circles and black. The Duchy of Heartsholme is ruled by House Corbray. 3 birds carrying red hearts. We swear by the crone's lamp. So House Corbray are an old but relatively poor Andal house, and they wield the ancestral Valyrian sword Lady Forlorn. The founder was this lad, Corwin Corbray. He took over the 5 Fingers and named himself Lord of the Fingers. And his descendant Kyle called himself King of the Fingers, and he was supposedly slain by King Royce himself. Meanwhile, Sir Jaime Corbray insists that he killed Royce himself, and then took back Lady Forlorn for House Corbray after the Royce King stole it. So in the past we have Carl Corbray, who was the commander of the City Watch during the early years of Jaehaerys I's reign, and he died during the Shivers. Okay, we're going to delve into some Hot D spoilers here, so skip to the next chapter, if you don't want to hear that. So Lord Leorwyn Corbray was the Lord Protector of the Realm during the minority of Aegon III. In this position he was beholden to the Council of Regents. He died during the Winter Fever. His younger brother was Corwin Corbray. Now Corwin wielded Lady Forlorn, and he was one of the regents of Aegon III. He also married Rhaena Targaryen, one of the daughters of Daemon Targaryen. During the Vale succession crisis after Jane Arryn's death, he commanded 10,000 men and marched to Goldtown to secure the peace. There he imprisoned Isambard Arryn and executed Sir Eldrick Arryn. Sir Arnold the Mad Heir fled to Runestone, so Corwin rode to arrest him, but a crossbowman on the Runestone battlements shot him and killed him. Here we have Sir Gawain Corbray, who you may remember from my Blackfire video. He was on the Kingsguard of King Daeron II. He brought reinforcements into the battle. He fought one-on-one with Daemon Blackfire and then was wounded, which I think is why they've given him an eye patch. However, instead of marching on, Daemon dismounted and ordered that Gawain be sent 2 maces in the rear, and in doing so he exposed himself and he was sniped at by a blood raven and a raven's teeth, and he was felled by arrows. So Gawain Corbray is sort of inadvertently responsible for the first Blackfire rebellion failing. Now during the main book series, the Lord is this guy. He doesn't have a name, but we just know him as Lord Corbray, and he was the Lord during Robert's Rebellion, and he wielded Lady Forlorn and fought for Bobby B. He was wounded during the Battle of the Trident, but taken to safety by his eldest son, and before he died he gave Lady Forlorn not to his eldest son, but to his second son. So the Lord during the books is his firstborn son, Lionel Corbray. Yeah, he carried his father to the rear for maces to help him. So now that I think about it, there are now 2 instances of a Corbray being wounded in battle and then being sent to maces in the rear. That's kind of weird. Anyway, he doesn't have any children, so Lyn is his heir. He didn't join the Lord's declarant against Littlefinger, so he's sort of allied with Littlefinger, I guess. And Littlefinger actually brokers a marriage between him and the daughter of a rich Goldtown merchant. And because he's marrying someone who's not a noble, he receives a significant dowry. So yeah, there we are, greedy, vengeful. His younger brother is Lyn Corbray, who wields, there we go, Lady Forlorn. Handsome, but also vain, hot-headed. After his father was wounded at the Trident and his older brother took him to safety, he took up Lady Forlorn and led an assault on the Dornish lines, and there he slew Prince Lewin Martell of the Kingsguard. And this is probably why his father gave him that sword. So he's a double agent working for Littlefinger. Initially he joins the Lord's Declarant, and he openly threatens Littlefinger with his blade, violating guest right. So doing so not only gives Littlefinger some more leverage, but it also presents Lyn as the figurehead of the anti-Baelish resistance, so people who are opposed to him will gather around Lyn, and then Lyn can inform on them. His rewards are gold and boys, and there's a bit of a debate in the fandom as to whether boys means he's, just gay, or whether boys means, like, children. And their younger brother is Lucas Corbray. As well as ruling the Duchy of Hartholme, they rule the County of Hartholme. The County of Bronze Spear is ruled by House Moore, 3 bronze spearheads on white. So we know of 2 Moors, and both of them are from the Kingsguard. In the past we had Sir Maladon Moore, who was on the Kingsguard of Maegor the Cruel. Apparently he's somewhat responsible for the death of Queen Cerise Hightower, where he held her down and another Kingsguard called Sir Owen Bush accidentally slit her throat, and he also is responsible for arresting Queen Tiana of the Tower and taking her to Maegor to be tortured and killed, so he ends up being beheaded by the new King Jaehaerys. And then in the main book series we have Sir Mandon Moore, who's the dead-eyed Kingsguard serving under Bobby B after he was brought to court by Jon Arryn. He's a pretty nasty guy, he beats Sansa on Joffrey's orders without question, just like Boris Blount and Meryn Trant. And he's assigned to protect Joffrey and Tyrion during the Battle of the Blackwater, but during that battle he cuts off Tyrion's nose while trying to kill him, so perhaps he was ordered by Cersei, or maybe he was ordered by Joffrey, or maybe even Littlefinger. But Podrick Payne pushes him in the Blackwater, and he drowns, because he's in his armour. The County of Rathmore is ruled by House Sheldrake, with a shell in front of a dragon. And the County of Standish is ruled by House Jesper, where we have a broken vase. Both of these houses are non-canon. The County of Stonefall is ruled by House Breakstone, which is canon. Here we have a red sledgehammer on white. So we know that there's someone called Sir Edmund Breakstone with this sigil in a Winds of Winter sample chapter, where he wants to compete in a tourney to decide who will be on Robert Arryn's Brotherhood of Winged Knights, which is kind of like his version of the Kingsguard. The Duchy of Crown Crests is ruled by House Egen. Here we have a sun, a moon and a star, by day or night. So yeah, we know of this guy, Sir Vardis Egen. He's the captain of the Eyrie Household Guard, and he's chosen as the champion of Tyrion's trial by combat. He goes up against Bronn. While he's sort of armoured and cumbersome, Bronn is lithe and light on his feet and is able to kill the knight with ease. In the show he's pushed down the Moondor. So they rule the Duchy of Crown Crest and the County of Crown Crescent. The County of Crestfall is ruled by House Marston. We have a lightning bolt going over black and green. Let the heavens rain. So House Marston are non-canon, but I did some research and I found them on the Obsidian Portal website. They belong to a Song of Ice and Fire RPG campaign called Blood and Stone. According to this guy's lore, Lord Corban and his 2 eldest sons die during Robert's rebellion, and it leaves behind a widow, Lady Isabel. The County of Moroncy is ruled by House Altgar, and the County of Purling is ruled by House Halcott, and they are both non-canon. The Duchy of Strong Song is ruled by House Belmore. They're a bunch of red-headed first men, who allied with Robar Royce against the Andau invasion. The current lord is Benedar Belmore, who's described as being fat and unkempt. So yeah, he's a chubby boy, and they've given him the uncouth trait here. So he's in the Lord's Declarant, but Littlefinger considers him to be corrupt. And lo and behold, they eventually become friends. Who would have guessed it? Here we have the gluttonous and greedy traits. And here we've got his son Marwyn Belmore. He's appointed captain of the Eyrie Guard after Vardis Egen is killed. He's fired from this position by Littlefinger, but then he's appointed as captain of the guard for the Gates of the Moon. And here we have 6 silver bells on purple, with the words Dread, Safety and Learning. As well as ruling the Duchy of Strongsong, they rule the counties of Strongsong and Topperpool. The County of Bluewater is ruled by House Seasons. Here we have a flower, we have the sun, we have a leaf, we have a snowflake, different seasons there. This is a cool sigil, but it's not canon. We have the County of Klamath, ruled by House Ringstone, which is a cadet branch invented for the mod. So here we have 3 silver bells on purple, and there's a sort of silver bend sinister, which implies there may be a bastard cadet branch. The County of Timber's Wedge is ruled by House Warwick. We have a sword impaling a skull on a field at night time. We know of one Warwick, that being Edmund Warwick, who served on Aegon III's Kingsguard. The County of Vernon is ruled by House Vernon. And the county of Wardlake is ruled by House Morris. We have a purple bat impaled by 2 spears, which is cool. But both of those houses are non-canon. Next up, the Duchy of Snakewood Forest, ruled by House Lynderly. A bunch of green vipers on black. Prayer, goodness, vigilance. The Lord at the start of the books is John Lynderly, this guy. He doesn't join the Lord's Declarant, but he does attend the wedding of Lord Corbray, so that implies he's friendly to Littlefinger. And he sends his son, he hasn't been born yet, but he sends his son Terence to be a squire for Robert Arryn. So they rule over the Duchy of Snakewood Forest, as well as the county of Snakewood itself. The county of Coral is ruled by House Wicket, with 3 spears tied up in rope. This is non-canon. The county of Harrowpool is ruled by House Harrow, which is non-canon. The county of Hungerford is ruled by House Hungerford. Here we've got like a couple of medieval forks on red. Weirdly, it looks like the Bolton sigil almost. So this is kind of canon because we know that there's one guy called Hugh Hungerford. There he is. He's a distant cousin, Hugh Hungerford. So he's a sergeant of the Windblown Sellsword Company in Essos. He used to be the paymaster. So, you know, here we have, he's a thrifty clerk. But he's tried to steal some of that money. So he's got the greedy trait. And he was caught stealing, so 3 of his fingers were cut off. He's currently imprisoned by Daenerys. The county of Misty Moor is ruled by House Rutley. We got a skunk on blue. Non-canon. The county of Sunkenwood is ruled by a cadet branch of House Lynderly. House Lynderly of Sunkenwood, which isn't canon, but it's a cool idea. I don't know what this sigil in the top left corner is meant to be, but I guess it denotes the origin of whoever founded this cadet branch. And then we have the county of Willowspire with House Devoner, a white tree there, and as you can probably tell, that's non-canon. The Duchy of the Drainlands does not have a duke, but it can be made into a duchy and given to the Counts of Coldwater Burn, that being House Coldwater itself. Now, House Coldwater is an actual house. Apparently they're sworn to the Royces of Runestone, so I don't know why they're over here and not in Runestone. And in the Winds of Winter sample chapter that I mentioned before, we are introduced to a Ben Coldwater, who wants to take part in a tourney. The county of Grey Glen is ruled by House Tollett. Again, House Tollett are also described as being sworn to House Royce, so I don't know why they're in this random duchy up here. They trace their ancestry back to Torgold the Grim, who was a giant of a man, and his nickname is ironic because he used to laugh a lot. He'd run into battle half naked, the 7-pointed star carved into his chest, and he would just laugh. He was supposedly killed by Robar Royce wielding Lady Forlorn. In the past we had Sir John Tollett, who was on Maegor the Cruel's Kingsguard. At first he was in the Kingsguard, but then Jaehaerys sent him to the wall. The current lord is Uthor Tollett. His son Andrew is in that Winds of Winter sample chapter, and then a distant branch of Tollett with Edison, the cynical guy, also known as Dolorous Ed. So Dolorous Ed is a steward of the Night's Watch in the book series, and he's, you know, dry, pessimistic, sarcastic. He's your average Englishman. And he was apparently raised in quite a crude environment, which implies that he comes from a lesser house of Tollett, and so the mod has represented this by making him a distant cousin. He's also meant to be like a greying man, so I don't know why he's only 8 years old. He also brings up an older brother who was killed by a bear, so they gave him an older brother. Yeah, he travels north during the Great Ranging, and he somehow survives, and during the Lord Commander election, some people vote for him as a meme, as a troll. In the show, he's shanked in the back during that Long Night episode. The county of Longmoor is ruled by House Driscoll. We got a donkey on yellow. This is non-canon. The county of Pinkstraith is ruled by House Marks, with a raccoon on pink. Shout out to my boy, Lord Mark Marks. And finally, the House of Tamlin is ruled by House Corrigan, which is also non-canon. Next, we have the Duchy of Grimholm, ruled by House Eresham. Sort of like a couple of grey mountains on pink with a black star. So yeah, this consists of a couple of the fingers and then some islands called the Paps. So the Ereshams used to be kings of the Paps, but then they bent the knee to the Arryn king, Hugo the Hopeful. We know of one Lord Eresham, this guy, who was married to a Waynwood, who was a daughter of Alice Arryn, but she didn't have any kids, and here they've made her a baron. The Ereshams rule the county of the Paps itself. And the barony of Stonewash is ruled by House Woodhull, or at least a branch of House Woodhull. They are landed knights from the Paps, and they're distant cousins of the main branch. In the past we had Henrietta Woodhull, who was at the Maiden's Day Ball, along with several other ladies for Aegon III. She wasn't picked, of course. The county of Bomonstone is ruled by House Bomonstone. Here we have an apple core surrounded by worms. Really cool sigil, but it is non-canon. The county of Browndon is ruled by House Woodhull, so this is the main branch of House Woodhull. The county of Midlaw is ruled by House Denbrove, which is a ridiculous name and obviously isn't canon. See, some of these like made up house names are either really cool and really like Germ inspired, or they're just completely random. Finally, the county of Midlaw Point. These are shit-stained rocks, little tower up here, ruled by a little house known as Baelish. The head of the Titan of Bravos on green. Look around you. Where do we begin? So, the original Baelish was a Bravosi sellsword brought over by House Corbray. I assume his name was just like Baelish, and then his descendants took that as a surname, but the mod has made him Tormo Baelish. His son was a hedge knight who took the Titan of Bravos' head as a sigil, and it may have been the Baelish who secured himself a keep in some land, and the mod has named him Marwyn Baelish. And his son was Lord Baelish, who the mod has named Corwin. And Lord Baelish was known as the smallest of small lords. He fought in the War of the Ninepenny Kings, where he befriended Hoster Tully, and as a result he had his son Peter fostered at Riverrun. And we know that Littlefinger's mother is called Elaine, so here we go, Elaine. And their child is the one, the only, Peter Baelish, known as Littlefinger because he's a small boy and grew up to be a small man from the fingers. Deceitful, gregarious, callous, ambitious, genius, fragile, charming. See, the scarred trait makes it so that his face is all scarred up, which is kind of annoying. He's a short king, really. So yeah, Littlefinger was fostered at Riverrun, where he fell in love with Catelyn Tully, and then he fought Brandon Stark for her hand in marriage, and he nearly died. Lysa Tully loved him, but it was unrequited. But he exploited it. So she persuaded Jon Arryn to put him in charge of customs in Goldtown, and he did a good job there, and so Jon Arryn brought him to King's Landing, and he eventually became Master of Coin for Bobby B. He became super rich, owning brothels and probably embezzling crown funds and so on. And he convinces Lysa to poison Jon Arryn, and he basically sparks the War of the Five Kings. He uses this chaos to rise higher. Chaos is a ladder. He becomes the Lord of Harrenhal and the Lord Paramount of the Trident. He marries Lysa Arryn. He then kills her, becoming Lord Protector of the Vale. He schemes with Sansa as his apprentice. He wants to bang Sansa, but he also sees her as a younger version of her mother who he wanted to bang. But he also sees her as the daughter he never had with the woman he wanted to bang. It's really weird. He takes the Mockingbird as his personal sigil. In the show, of course, he becomes dumb and increasingly Irish, and then he dies. In his service, he has an unlanded house. House Kettleblack. Hearth and home. A black kettle on red. So Oswell is a man-at-arms in service to House Baelish. He helps Sansa escape King's Landing. And he has 3 kids, known as the Kettleblack brothers, who work for Cersei, except they're actually being paid by Bronn as double agents working for Tyrion, except they're actually being paid by Littlefinger as triple agents working against Cersei and Tyrion. The eldest is Sir Osmond Kettleblack, who ends up joining the Kingsguard and takes part in Cersei's villainous schemes. He gets imprisoned by the Faith Militant after Cersei confesses to sleeping with him. Apparently he has the choice of either going to the Night's Watch or proclaiming his innocence and fighting Robert Strong in a trial by combat. The second son is Sir Osfryd. He's the least friendly of the brothers. He becomes captain of the Lannister Guard and then later the commander of the City Watch, and he is also imprisoned after Cersei confesses to bedding him. The youngest is Sir Osney. Sir Osney murders the High Septon for Cersei, and she tasks him with seducing Margaery Tyrell, but it fails, and so instead he falsely confesses to seducing her, but the High Sparrow tortures him for more information and discovers the extent of Cersei's plans. For murdering the previous High Septon, he's sentenced to death. The Duchy of Northbreach is ruled by House Hersey, a white winged chalice on pink. We don't really know much about them, but they are canon. They rule over the county of Hersey. The county of Eventide is ruled by House Morgrin, and they are semi-canon because in the Game of Thrones Telltale game, apparently there's a guy called Rickard Morgrin, but I'll have to play that to work out what his deal is. The county of Forgotten Shore is ruled by House Symes. We got a grey cat. House Symes is non-canon. The county of Pebble is ruled by House Prior, with an eclipse over a sun. House Prior is actually canon. In the past there was a Dunstan Prior, who married Alice Turnberry, who was a companion of Princess Sarah Targaryen, who got pregnant with a bastard and so got married off to this guy. The county of Portmouth is ruled by House Wiltwood, a wilting tree. This isn't canon, but Portmouth sounds strangely similar to Portsmouth, which is a shitty city in the UK. The county of Wreckshaw is ruled by House Bleaker, which is non-canon. The county of Scorched Vale is ruled by House Groat. Oh my goodness, it's like a mermaid goat on a checkered purple and black field, by fidelity and bravery. House Groat are not canon, but I did some research and apparently they belong to an RPG called The Curse of Magor, and they're described as a vassal of House Hersey. Likewise, the county of Strikeguard is ruled by House Brask, which is non-canon, but I did some research and I found their name on the A Song of Ice and Fire Fanon wiki. So there we go. The Duchy of the Cut has no duke, but it can be given to the Counts of Sunrise Bight, House Donegal, a setting sun. House Donegal are semi-canon, they're mentioned on the Citadel website. The county of Bloodon is ruled by House Flattery. You got an angry dog. The county of Crow's Barons is ruled by House Garish, with a sigil that really is quite garish. And the county of Moonbloom is ruled by House Revere, with what looks like a... I don't know what the hell that's meant to be. What is that? Anyway, all three of these houses are non-canon. However, what is canon are the Counts of Rockall, House Lips, just a pair of lips on blue, with the one, the only, Dick on Lips. We know of one Lips, it's Sir Ossifer Lips. Where is he? There we go. Sir Ossifer Lips, who's in the Winds of Winter sample chapter. Last but not least, we have the Duchy of the Sisters. These three islands are called the Three Sisters, ruled by House Sunderland, which is three women on waves. So the three islands here are Sweet Sister, Long Sister and Little Sister, considered to be dens of sin and avarice. They used to be ruled by local kings and they would raid the north and so on. But then the north invaded these islands and so they bent the knee to the Eyrie for Vale support, and then from then on they're accepted as part of the Vale. In the past we had Queen Marla Sunderland, who rose up during Aegon's conquest and crowned herself Queen of the Sisters, but she ended up being deposed by her own people and her tongue was cut out, and she was exiled to the Silent Sisters, and she was replaced by her brother Stefan, who became the new lord. We also know that a Lord Sunderland fought in the first Blackfire Rebellion on the side of the Blackfires, and was also part of the conspiracy of the second Blackfire Rebellion. The current lord is a guy called Tristan Sunderland. He rules over the Duchy of the Sisters, as well as the county of Sunderland itself, which is on the island of Long Sister. The counts of the west of Long Sister are House Longthorpe, who are ruled by Lord Roland. The island of Little Sister is ruled by House Torrent, and that's ruled by Lord Alessandro Torrent. Finally, the island of Sweet Sister is ruled by House Borrell. We got a white crab on green. So the ancestors of House Borrell were pirate kings. The lord is known as the Lord of Sweet Sister, the Shield of Sisterton, the Master of Breakwater Castle, the Keeper of the Night Lamp. During Robert's Rebellion, there's an unnamed Lord Borrell. Ned Stark washed up on Sweet Sister while sailing north to rally his banners, and Lord Borrell let him go instead of handing him over to the Mad King. The current lord is Godric Borrell, who has a black reputation as a robber lord, and here he has the Mark. So some sistermen have something called the Mark, which means their fingers are webbed. It's kind of weirdly Lovecraftian. So he has supper with Davos Seaworth, and he doesn't arrest him or send him to King's Landing because he doesn't really like Cersei. He lets Davos continue to go to White Harbour to try and bring Wyman Manderly on his side. He's described as having 2 daughters here and a granddaughter who I guess hasn't been born yet. There we have it, the Vale. At this point I usually say comment and let me know where to go next, but I think I know where I'm going next. Oh boy. Oh boy. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe and check out my other videos. Let me know in the comments what else I could do with CK3. And if you're interested, check out the Patreon. Speaking of, special thanks to my patrons: Andre, Boombler, Lalaloopsie, Lord Devcole, Colshot and Lauren. Thanks for watching.